Today's shiur begins at the bottom line of Daf Kuf Ches Omid Beis. You'll see a Mishnah that appears there. The Mishnah deals with a father-in-law that committed himself to, or we should say maybe pledged money toward the wedding of his daughter, and then he declares to his son-in-law that I am not paying. Ha-posek mos l'chasono. Posek is a situation of a person pledging a certain amount of money for his son-in-law. It means to give to his daughter in anticipation of the wedding. Uposhat lo es haregel. This expression, without translating it literally, means he then reneges. There are different explanations on as to what exactly it means, but it's basically his refusal to provide the funds that he had pledged. Literally, it means he stretched out his leg. It's with some dirt on it, and as Rashi says, he tells his son-in-law, "Clean the dirt off my shoe." But you should note also that in modern Hebrew, this expression "poshel regel" is a term used for bankruptcy. So you have that situation. The Mishnah continues at the top of Kuf Tes Omid Aleph, Teishev ad shetalbin rosha. The daughter, the bride, can sit until her hair turns white. In other words, the son-in-law can say, if you're not going to give me what you pledged, then I'm simply not marrying her, and she can stay as she is until her old age. Admon Omer, Yecholahi Shetomar. Admon, you can see this is the third of the 7 halachas in the name of Admon. He can say, Ilu ani posakti latzmi, if I was the one that pledged the money, then a shevat shetalbin roshi, then I will stay, then it's my problem, then I brought it on myself. Achshav sha'aba posak, mani yochola lasois. Now that it's my father that made the pledge, what am I supposed to do? O knos, o ptor. We didn't mention at the beginning, but this is a situation where the girl has already entered Erusin. She's already entered the first stage of marriage. So the threat of her being remaining, we'll say, single or unwed is a serious threat, because otherwise she's now an Ashes Ish. She has a married status, and her husband isn't going to consummate the marriage. Admon, however, says that it's not her fault, and therefore she can say to the husband, O Kenos, either you take me in, you consummate the marriage with Nisuin, O Ptor, or free me by giving me a divorce. Omar Rabbi Gamliel, Roya Ani es Divrei Admon. And Rabbi Gamliel feels that Admon's way is the way to go. On the side, we've provided a topic heading. HaPosek mos l'chasano poshat lo asaregel lefi haMishnah noisei hamachlokes admon v'chachomim hadinim mi. According to our Mishnah, the topic of the machlokes between Admon and the Chachamim is, with whom is the law? Hachosen or Abbas? Does the husband have the upper hand? Can he call the shots? Or the daughter, the bride? Lefi Braisa Mufa b'Gemara, according to another Tanaic source brought in the Gemara, they'll say machlokes Admon Chomim, the machlokes, the topic of the machlokes between Admon and Chomim is b'mikre she poskeli atzma, where she herself had pledged money. Avol b'mikre she'avia posak v'lo nasan, where the father had made the pledge but did not come through. Hadini ma, there everyone will agree the law is with her. She can say, it's my father that made the pledge, what can I do? Now the Gemara. Masnisin delo ki hai tana. Our Mishnah is not like the following Braisa. Tesanya, Omar Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, Lo nechleku Admon v'Chomim ala poisek mos lechasono. uposhat lo regel. There is no machlokes concerning a father-in-law that dedicated money toward the wedding of his daughter with the son-in-law and then reneged. Sheyechola hi shetomar, the bride, the daughter of that man can say, Abba pasak alai, father pledged, ma'ani yechola lasos, what can I do? Al ma nechleku, so then what is the point of machlokes? Al sheposko hi al atzma, where she pledged to bring money into the marriage, and then reneges. Shechachomim omrim teishev ad she'tal bin rosha, she shall sit until her old age, and she's just locked into this state of non-consummated marriage. And Admon Omer Yechola Hi Shetomar, she can say Kisurani Sha'aba Noisin Olai. I thought that I would be backed up by father, that he would come through for me. V'achshav Shein Abba Noisin Olai. Now that I see father is not coming through for me on my pledge, Ma'ani Yechola Asos. What can I do? O Kanos O Pator. Either take me in, consummate the marriage as is, or free me with a get. Omar Rabban Gamliel Roa Ani es Divrei Admon. Tana. Now Tana is a Tanaic source that is an explanation of this brisa. It goes on the brisa. It says Bamed Mamurim Begdola. The idea of leaving the girl in a lurch is if she is a gedola, she made a pledge as an adult, meaning she's over 12 years of age. Aval biktana koifin. If she is a minor, then we force. Koifin leman. Who are we forcing? Ilema la'av. If it's an issue of forcing the father, well, ibcha mi boyalei. It should have been then the opposite. That when is it that we force the father? If it is a gedola, if the daughter that is a gedola, that her t'nai, the pledge of a girl that's an adult, is meaningful, but the pledge of a ktana lacks all meaning whatsoever. So why would the source say koifin if the forcing is going on the father and it's the t'nai of a ktana? Ella Omar Rava koifin labal litain get. So rather, the brisa that said what it did is only if it's referring to the forcing of the husband to give a get. So that when this secondary brisa says Bamad Vamamurim Begedola, it's Bamed Vamurim that we leave things, we'll say, in a lurch, and we don't force the husband to give a get. But if it's a condition that was made by a ktana, then we will force the husband to either give a get or to take her in. Let us glance at the side. We have a new topic heading, the nosei, and we indicate that this is a keta, a section of Gemara, shel psikas halacha, where halacha is presented as a final ruling. Ha'im poiskim kechonon b'mishnayos rishonos ke'admon olo. Are we to rule like Chonon in the first mishnayos of the parak? He introduced two halachas, and likewise, do we rule like Admon or not? Admon had presented is presenting, we'll say, 7 halachas, 3 of which we've seen already. Omar Rav Yitzchok ben Elazar Mishmei Dechizkiah Kol Mokim Sha'omar Rabbi Gamliel Roya Ani Es Divrei Admon, where that phrase appears, Rabbi Gamliel entering the Mishnah, saying that I approve of the halacha of Admon. So the halacha goes like him. Omar le Rava, the Rav Nachman. Rava asks Rav Nachman, Afilu b'braisa, does this apply also to the brisa? You see we have a little arrow to the immediate right-hand side of the Gemara text. If you scan up a couple lines, you'll see that Rabban Gamliel says that phrase also with regard to the Brisa. So does that mean that we follow that which Rabban Gamliel says in the Brisa as well? Amar lei. So Rav Nachman answers, Mi Kwamrinan b'Mishnah. Did I say that we'll follow Rabban Gamliel's ruling only in the Mishnayos? B'chol mokim shomar Rabban Gamliel Kwamrinan. Wherever Rabban Gamliel says that it is the way to go, it's the way we will rule. So including the comment of Rabban Gamliel in the Brisa. Omar Rabbi Zera, Omar Rabbo Bar Yirmiyah. Shnei Dvorim Sha'omar Chonon. The 2 points of Chonon, Halacha Kayotze Bo. The term Kayotze Bo is a reference to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who had appeared in the Mishnayos where Chonon introduced his halacha, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had said that I approve, I go with the teachings of Chonon. Shiva Dvorim Shomar Admon Ein Halacha Kayotze Bo. The 7 points that halacha said, so the halacha does not follow the Kayotze Bo. Now here we translate, but we're going to have to point out that it's not accurate. It doesn't make any sense, and we'll have to wait for the Gemara to explain it. But if we just translate it, it comes out that the 7 points that Admon says, the halacha will not follow the Kayotze Bo. The Kayotze Bo, in the case of Admon, is a reference to Rabban Gamliel, who had approved Admon's teachings. So, you know that already is very difficult in light of the Gemara just before this, with Rabbi Yisrael ben Elazar in the name of Chizkiah saying that we actually do follow Rabban Gamliel. So the Gemara asks, "My Ka'omar, what is being said here? That the Shiva Dvarim that Admon says, Ein Halacha Kayotze Bo." And in order to analyze this, you see that we have several stages, and that's what the volcano shape is highlighting. And on the side under the Mivneh heading, you can see we've written that this represents Shlavei Birur, stages in clarifying Kedei Lahavin Divrei Rabbi Zera. So the Gemara says, "My Ka'omar," what is being said over here by Rabbi Zera? Hi lema hachi Ka'omar Shnei Dvorim she'omar Chonon halacha kamoso v'kayotze boi v'shiva Dvorim she'omar Admoin ein halacha kamoisoi v'lo kayotze bo. That the 2 things that Chonon said, the halacha follows Chonon and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who supported him, and the 7 things that Admon said, the halacha does not follow him, nor the one that supported him, namely Rabban Gamliel. That can't be, though. V'ha'omar Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar mishmei de Chizkiah. This is the quote from above. We have arrows to help you find it. Kol mokum shamar Rabban Gamliel roya ani es divrei Admon halacha kamoso. That wherever Rabban Gamliel says, I like Admon, the halacha follows him. Elo hachi komar. Rather, thusly, Rabbi Zera was saying, Shnei dvorim shomar chonon halacha kamoisoi v'chayotze bo. So far, that's the same as we said before. The 2 things that Chonon says, the halacha follows him and he who supported him, namely Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And as far as Chonon, just by the way, you'll note that's not going to be changing in these various presentations, that the halacha follows him and the Kayotze Bo, the one who supported him. However, let's see what is with regard to the Shiva Dvorim, Shomar Admon, Ein Halacha Kayotze Bo. Ha Kemoisoi Halacha Bekulhu. That means that the 7 things that Admon says, we're not going to take Rabban Gamliel's point of view, that thought that only with regard to 3 of Admon's teachings are we to follow, but rather we're going to follow Admon, who stated his teachings on 7 points. In other words, what Rabbi Zera is saying, if you accept this, is that we should disregard Rabban Gamliel's approach, And his approach, by the way, we had highlighted, if you just want to look back, we had used a double underlining for this purpose in order to see quickly that where Rav Gamliel is supporting Admon's teachings. So you can see that on Kuf Ches Amid Beis, you have the first two halachas, and Rav Gamliel following with his statement, Ro'ani as Divrei Admon. But as you go on to the next Mishnah, where you see a number 4, you don't see any appearance of Rav Gamliel. And the same is the case in the succeeding Mishnayos, which you find on Amid Beis. You see the 5th teaching of Admon, and again, no appearance from Gamliel. And the same is the case with regard to Kuf Yud Amid Aleph, where 6 and 7 appears. Once again, no Rabban Gamliel. Because Rabban Gamliel was saying, I like Admon in only 3 of his rulings, and I don't like him in the others. And Rabbi Zera is coming to say, if you accept number 2 over here, Rabbi Zera is saying that Rabbi Gamliel is not to be followed, because he limits our acceptance of Admon to 3 when he should have accepted Admon in all 7. The Gemara says this suggestion is rejected, cannot be. From Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar Mishmei Dechizkiah, Kol Mokim She'omar Rabban Gamliel Royani Es Divrei Admon Halacha Kamoso. Omar in, lo Omar lo. That all the places that Gamliel spoke up and said, we shall follow Admon, then and only then will we follow Admon. But if Rabbi Gamliel did not speak up, then we won't follow Admon. Ela hochi komar. So what Rabbi Zera must have been saying is as follows. Shnei dvorim shomar chonon halacha kamoso v'kayotze bo. Shiva dvorim shomar Admon. As far as the 7 points of Admon, yesh mehen shalocha kamoso v'kayotze bo, v'yesh mehen she'ein halacha kamoso elo kayotze bo. There, of the 7 things that Admon said, there are some that the halacha will follow him, and Rabban Gamliel has supported him, and there are other halachas of Admon that we are not going to go like him, but rather like Rabban Gamliel. Wherever Rabban Gamliel spoke up, namely the first 3 Admon teachings, there we will follow Admon. Enoch, the others, no. Now, with that having been said, we continue with the next Mishnah, which is, we'll say, the first example of an Admon halacha without Rabban Gamliel supporting him. Before we learn the Mishnah, we glance at the side. We have a topic heading which reads under the nosei, Ha'orer al hasadeh, v'hu chosim olel eid, be'eid. So, Orer means someone who is contesting the ownership of property. And that contester, the challenger, the Orer, he challenges ownership. That, or if we use a simple word, the complainer, he happens to be signed on as a witness. Now that's a little abstract. What does that mean? So we have an example on the side. Levi mochar soda l'Shimon. Levi sells a field to Shimon. Ve'al shtar ha'mechira Ruvain chosum ke'ed. And on the document of sale, on the deed, you have Reuven signing as a witness, as one of 2 witnesses that is necessary to give a contract its full legal strength. So you need 2 witnesses, and one of them is Reuven that's signed on as a witness. Aval Reuven ma'arer b'fnei Shimon, but Reuven complains to Shimon, Shelevi zeh shemocha lo chasada gozlo mimeni, that the one who sold the field to you, he stole it from me. So you have an obvious problem here. You have a contradiction. You have on the one hand Reuven complaining to Shimon, hey, you bought a stolen property. It's my field. And on the other hand, you have that very same Reuven, the complainer, that is signing on the transaction between Levi and Shimon, indicating that I second the motion, that I agree that it's Levi's field to sell to Shimon. So what do we make of this? The Mishnah, Ha'orer al hasodeh v'hu chosem olel eid. just as we explained, as we said, that Reuven complained to Shimon regarding a particular field that he bought from Levi, that being my field that Levi stole from me. Now, the Tosfos Rid adds a very significant piece of information, and that is that there are witnesses that the field had belonged to Reuven. Reuven's not coming just out of the blue complaining, hey, you bought stolen property, but Reuven also is able to produce witnesses that the field had been Reuven's. The big problem is that Reuven is kind of signing away his rights to it by signing the transaction between Levi and Shimon, where Shimon would be able to say, if this field was really yours, then why are you signing on the shtar that Levi prepared for me? It must be that the fact that you signed on the deed is really tantamount to a confession that it's not yours, but it really belongs to Levi. So we continue in the Mishnah. Admon Omer. Admon says, Yochol hu sheyoimar, the complainer, in our example, Reuven, he does not forfeit his rights to the field. He can explain why he signed on to the sale. He could say, Hasheni noyach li, v'arishon kosher menu. You, the buyer, were easier for me to deal with. You didn't pose a threat. Whatever the nature of the threat is, it was easier for me to deal with you, to get the field away from you, than to get it away from Levi. He was an awfully tough guy that even though I have witnesses that it was my field, it's still maybe he's a member of the mob and who wants to deal with them. And therefore, I wanted the field to leave the possession of Levi for you to take it over so that I would be able to take it from you. The Chachamim oimrim, ibed ezuchuso. The Chachamim say, no, if you signed on on the sale, that is tantamount to forfeiting your rights to it. Asa simin le'acher Ibeid es zechuso. Now, to appreciate this situation, we look at the Rashi. Again, we're dealing with a complainer. The Rashi says, Asa hamuchsik ba simin liacher. There's a current holder of the field, and if we continue our example, I hope we don't get confused here with the names, but if we continue our example, Levi is interested in selling the field to Shimon. So Levi is the muchsik ba. He's holding on to the field. He's currently holding on to it, and he makes it. He also simin liacher. We'll explain that in a moment. Shelo mochar l'Reuven zeh orel. Levi is selling the field to someone other than the complainer. He's selling it to Shimon, an outsider. Elo li shacher hoyo moicher sadeh mitzad zu. There is a field over which Reuven is complaining. We have a little diagram on right to the side of this Rashi, as you can see, and there are two fields featured here in the squares. The left-hand field is Sadeh HaUrur. It's the field concerning which there is a complaint being lodged. Then there is the right-hand square indicates Sadeh Shenimkar, a field that is being sold right now. Levi is selling to Shimon. And Rashi goes on, Umeitzelo arbas mitzrei asadeh. Shimon, and it's Levi who's selling the field, delineates the four borders of the field, describes what is on each one of the borders. V'kosav lo b'meitzorim, and he writes regarding the borders, Meitzar ploni sadeh sheli. One of the borders of the field I'm selling to you borders on a field that is mine. The also saw the zu siman meitzah lokeach ubishmoi shel mocher that particular field, the field that was, we'll say, the contested field, was used as a border sign, and it was described as the seller's field. And the complainer signed on that deed. So, what are we in effect saying? We have a little caption under the diagram that we included, and we have a case where Levi is selling a field. It was a Levi Mocher L'Shimon Sadeh. The Kosev Bishtar, and Levi writes in the title deed, Sha'al Meitzar Hamarovi, on the western border, Yesh Sadeh Shali. There is my field is on the western border. And when he says Sadeh Shali, it means my, meaning Levi. V'al Shtar Zeh Ruvain Chosum Ke'ed. And on this shtar, Ruvain has signed on as a witness. Chasimoso Maresh Shehu Maskin Deshel Levi. His signature indicates that the field, in fact, is Levi's. So what's going on? That Ruvain is signing on a shtar, which indicates that the field concerning which he is protesting really belongs to Levi, the seller of the other field that borders on this. So the Mishnah says that if Ruvain does sign on to such a document, he loses his rights. Omar Abaye. The Gemara continues with Abaye telling us, Lo shanu elo aid. This idea of Ibeid Ezechuso, that one loses his rights because he signed on, is if it's a witness that signed on, and this individual, this witness, he was contesting the ownership of that particular field, which was being used as a sign of the borders. Avol dayon lo Ibeid Ezechuso. If the contester was not the witness that signed on, but rather he was a judge that signed on this document confirming the signatures of witnesses. This is a concept known as Kiyum Hashtaros. Kiyum Hashtaros is verification of signatures. Oftentimes, the validity of a document is challenged by the claim that the witnesses that signed on were forged. So, in cases like that, the document is brought to the court, and judges accept the testimony of the witnesses themselves who verify their signatures. Now, the judges, they don't read the content of the shtar. They're focusing only on the signatures. Being that the judge is not aware of the content of the shtar of the deed, in this situation where a field was being contested by a judge who verified the signatures in that shtar, i.e. the shtar which indicated that the field that the judge was contesting as his own was a field that someone was claiming, the seller was claiming as his. So the fact that the judge signs on the confirmation of the signatures does not constitute his forfeiting of the rights to the field. The Tani Rebbe Chia, Ein ho'edim choismin al hashtar lim kein koruhu. Witnesses who sign on documents, they don't sign until they read the contents of the document. We continue at the top of Omid Beis. Avol hadayonim choismin afal pi shelo koruhu. Judges will sign on as a court confirmation of signatures without having read the content of the document. All they need to do is to focus on the signatures and establish them as authentic. Asa simin li'acher. On the side of the Gemara, we have a topic heading, Asa simin li'acher. One case is to an outsider. We had the example of Levi selling a field to Shimon, and Shimon being the outsider. V'hama'arer chosum al shtar ha'mechira ke'ed, and the ma'arer, the complainer, Reuven, had signed on the bill of sale as a witness. And there's another case, and that's what Abaye will reveal, of the sale to the ma'arer, to the complainer, to Reuven himself. Omar Abaye, lo shonu, the teaching of the Mishnah that ibed es zechuso, if the contested field was used as a border marker, this is true only if the sale was to elo li'acher, to an outsider. Avol li'atzmoi loy ibed es zechuso. If using the names we had before, if Levi was selling the, we'll say the neighboring field to Reuven himself, Reuven does not lose his rights to his own field, the field that was being used as a marker. The Omar, the Ma'arer, Reuven said, now Reuven was buying, he wasn't buying the field that he was contesting, he was buying the field that was next to the one he was contesting. And Levi was describing the field being sold as next to Levi's field, the field that Reuven was claiming as his own. So Reuven, he played along, and he explains, Idolo avdi lehachi, if I wouldn't have kept quiet, lo havim mazvin lo nihali, he wouldn't have sold this neighboring field, which I was very, very interested in buying. He wouldn't have sold it to me had I complained about the description of this field that I'm buying as bordering on what Levi claimed to be his field, when I know that adjacent field is mine. My islach lemeimar, what are you going to say to challenge my silence? Iboyali lemimsar moidah, that I should have spoken up to others. I should have issued a disclaimer, modah, a disclaimer that though I'm buying this field, which is described as bordering on Levi's field, I protest that. And you're challenging me that I should have indicated that to others. Well, that wouldn't have helped my situation in my quest for acquiring this field. Chavroch chavro islay, v'chavro de chavroch chavro islay. Word travels by mouth. That the person to whom I would have issued the modah, he has friends, and his friends have friends, and the word would have gotten back to Levi, who was selling the field, and once again he would have canceled the deal and not sold me the field because of my protest. So therefore I remained silent. We now have an incident, a story, a maisa, and you'll notice that this goes till the Mishnah. Hahu de'asah simin li'acher. There was a case like this of we'll say a contested field that was being used as a border marker for another field. Ir v'shochiv. There was a person who complained, and it's the same case where he had signed on the sale, and in the Mishnah it says that if you do that, if you're signing on a deed that the field that you're complaining about is being used as a border marker and presented in the name of the other fellow, of the seller, and not yourself, you lose your rights, and that your complaining, your challenge is disregarded. And Vishochiv, and that Ma'arer died. V'oikim apetroipa. And an executor was set up to tend to that man's estate. Also apetropis l'kamed Abaye. The executor came to Abaye, Omarle. Abaye says to the man, you're an executor of the deceased estate, but you should realize the field that he was claiming as his own. He can't. Your clients cannot claim that field as an inheritance because their father had forfeited his rights to it by having signed on a bill of sale indicating that very field concerning which he was complaining belonged to someone else, the fellow who was selling an adjacent property. Omar, the apotropos, this executor speaks up and says, and you'll notice we have triangles on the side under the Mivneh heading, we indicate these are Tainus Sha'omron apotropos. These are claims that the apotropos makes to Abaye, and you'll see in this Gemara how this apotropos effectively gets the field back for his clients, the heirs. The apotropos says, if their father was alive, he could have said, oh, you're claiming that I lose possession of the field that I'm complaining over because I indicated my consent to the seller's ownership by having signed on that deed in which my field was being described as a border. He can say, tell him echad asisilach. Tell him as a furrow. Let's say one row of planting. That is what I had indicated was the border and that of Levi, the seller. The entire field, with the exception of one strip of land, the entire field is mine. Yes, I know that I indicated that on the western side, Levi had property that was a border of the field being sold. The border was in effect one strip that belongs to Levi. Omar Abaye, upon hearing this, says, Shapir Kuamris, you're making a good point. The Omer Rabbi Yochanan, Im Toan v'Omar Tel Echad Asisilach. Rabbi Yochanan says that if the Ma'arer counter-claimed and said, when I indicated that the western side of the field being sold bordered on Levi's field, yes, one strip of land, not the entire field, he would be believed. Zil hav le mias telem echad. So Abaye says, well, at least what you now have to do is you have to part with one furrow. Have alo richba de dikli. Another detail is revealed now that on that furrow, on that row of ground, there was a row of trees. Richba de dikli. A sequence of trees planted along that furrow. Omar Lay, the apotropos says, if their father was still alive, he could have claimed Chazarti velokachti mimenu, that yes, I had signed on that shtar, that deed, with the indication that the western border was on that which Levi owned, and it was one strip of land. But after I made that siman, afterwards I bought that furrow back from Levi. Omar Le, Abaye says, Shapir Kwarmas, you're making a good point. The Omar Rabbi Yochanan, Im Toan v'Omar, if the complainer said, Chazati v'lokachtiv mimenu ne'emon, that I subsequently bought it back from Levi after I had signed on that deed of sale of the neighboring field, he would be believed. Now there's a very important Rashi a few lines down from here. Ne'emon, on what basis is he believed? Ta'pesh Oser u'apesh shehitir. The the claims or the speech that makes things bad, makes things negative or weak, is the same power to make things strong, to positive. Once there are witnesses that the field had belonged to him and was stolen from him, Levi and his claims to even that furrow is only based on the fact that Reuven the complainer had acknowledged it as Levi's by having signed on the deed. So Reuven the complainer is the source of Levi's claim to anything to begin with. So that Reuven, who's the complainer, is the one that had originally weakened his own position by acknowledging it as Levi's and signing it. And it's that very Reuven who's also saying, yes, and I bought it back from him. Omar Abaye, Hi man, we're back in the Gemara. Hi man, de moikim apetroipa. If anyone should ever decide to set up an executor, noikim ki hai, should set up someone like this. The yoda lafuchi b'schusu diasmi, who knows, who is expert in seeking out the rights of his Yisayim clients, of the orphans over concerning whom he was appointed executor. In other words, if you got to choose anyone, choose someone like this. On the side, we have a topic heading as we approach the new Mishnah. Mi she sodehu mukaf mikol hatzdodim v'hoya lo derech gisha l'sodehu elo shenevad lo. We're going to describe a landlocked field. What do we mean by a landlocked field? There is a person owned a piece of property, and it had no access, direct access. It didn't border on a road. It was surrounded by fields owned by others. And it's obvious that at one point the inner field had a path, had either owned a path or had rights to cut through one of those fields to get to one of the surrounding roads. However, in the course of time, it became was overgrown. It was lost, and the owner is the owner of the inner field is now complaining. I want a path. The Mishnah, Misholach Minasayam, someone who went abroad, the Avda Derech Sdeo, and the path to his landlocked field got lost. Admoin Oimer Yelech Lo Baktsora. Admon says he can go through the shortest route, cut through whichever field has in it the shortest route to the road. Rashi says Yelech Lo Baktsora Al Korcham Yitolo Derech Lo Sodeo. Against the will of anyone who's surrounding him, he has a right to claim a path. But he must take the shortest path. He can't take to claim for himself more than that, more than the minimum. V'chachamim omrim yikne loy derech b'me'amona al yifrach ba'avir. The only option he has is to pay whatever price. Me'amona is just an example of a lot of money, to pay whatever price they asked for it, or let him fly from his field to the road. Very simply, the Chumim don't give the contester the upper hand. The Gemara. My taima de Rabbanan. Why did the Rabbanan shortchange or make this guy lose out? Shapir Ko'amar Admon. Admon seems to be saying a very correct point. Now, the thinking right now is that the Havamina right now is that the surrounding fields were owned by one party. So you have only two parties in this picture. You have an inner owner, and you have an owner of the ring of fields that surrounds this inner field. So that the inner guy has a very strong claim. He says to the single owner surrounding all his fields, I have a path through one of your fields. In other words, I have a definite claim on you. So why is it that why is it that the Chachamim disregard that claim? Omar Rav Yehuda Omar Rav Kagon Shikifu Arba Bnei Adam Me Arba Ruchaiseha. The inner field was surrounded by 4 different landowners owning the 4 different fields. If that's the case, so each owner can easily push off this complainer and saying, yeah, you might have a path, but it's not through my field, it's through the other guy's field. So why would Admon say that he can claim a path, albeit the shortest path, that he can force a claim on them? That doesn't seem to be reasonable. Omar Rava. So Rava gives us 2 situations that there's really no agreement. There's no disagreement. It's only a 3rd situation that will be the point of controversy. If you have 4 surrounding owners, each one of whom bought from a previous owner, or 4 current surrounding owners that each one bought from the same original owner of all 4 fields. In other words, there was a person that owned 4 pieces of property, and he subdivided his property into 4 sections, selling it to 4 separate purchasers. So in either of these cases, where you're dealing with 4 current owners, everyone agrees, even Admon agrees, that the current owners can push this guy off and say, you might have a claim, but it's not in my field, let's go to the other guy. Ki pligi, the machlokas between Admon and the Chachamim arises in the following situation. Bechad de'asi mikoyach arba. There is currently one owner of the 4 surrounding fields. Now that one owner, he bought his current real estate possession from 4 different people. Admon Savar, Admon, who gives the upper hand to the challenger, to the landlocked guy, he says, Mikol Mokoim Darka Isli Gaboch. I have a path through one of your fields. You completely surround me. So, though you bought the fields from different people, you're the current owner of all of the property. So, whichever way you look at it, my path cuts through one of your fields. For Rabbanan Savri, the Rabbanan say, however, Ishaskis, that the current owner of all 4 fields can tell the complainer, if you keep quiet and pay me a good price, a cheap price, but we'll settle on a good deal, just stop complaining, but you will pay me something, that's great. The elo, and if you don't keep quiet, you keep pressing your claim, demanding a return of a path without having to pay for it, you know what I'm going to do? Mahadarno shtara lamarayu. I'll return the deeds to the 4 different people that I bought the property from, that I bought the properties from. And you'll have no luck against them. In other words, if I, remove myself from the picture and restore it to the prior state of affairs, you'll have to then deal with 4 separate people. And as indicated, you have no chance against them because each one will push you off. On the side we have the mivneh, the diamond appears, Shnei Maisim Shel Tzavo Lifnei Misa. There are 2 stories of a person issuing a will prior to his death. Chalukas Rechush, we'll see the division of property. Dekolim Labas. In both cases you'll see a person has an estate, he's issuing a will, and he has palm trees, and he wants to dedicate a palm to a daughter. In general, daughters, when there are sons, daughters are not in the line of inheritance. But he wants to give as a gift a palm tree. Now the Gemara. Hahud Omar Lahu Diklo Lebras. There was a father that was dying, and at the time of death, he says, palm tree to daughter. Also Yasmi Polug Lenichsi Lo Yavu Lo Dikla. The sons, the orphans, the heirs divided up the estate and did not give her a palm tree. Sover of Yosef Lememar Hainu Masnisen. Rav Yosef thought that, well, this is an illustration of the case of the Mishnah, where each heir can say, yeah, you have a palm tree coming to you, but it's not from my property. That is reminiscent of the opinion of the Chachomim in the Mishnah. Omar le Abaye, Midomi. Abaye says to Rav Yosef, how can you compare this to the case of the Mishnah? Hasam, in the case of the Mishnah, Kol Chad v'Chad Motzi Matchile, each surrounding owner can push the complainer who is seeking out a path to the next guy. Hacha, in this case, Dikla Gabayu Hu. The palm tree is definitely here amongst them. The daughters, let's say a palm tree to which the daughter has a right is definitely amongst them. All of these properties were one property at the time of the will. My takantayu. So what's the solution? Leisvu law dikla. So these heirs will have to part with one tree, and you'll say, well, who's the one that has to part with it? The answer is as follows: one tree will be given to her, v'lahadru v'liflugu meresha, and they shall redivide the entire estate again without factoring in that particular palm tree. So it's not as if any one of them had given up on the palm tree, but rather she gets the palm tree off the top, and the estate is then redivided. Hahu di Omar lahu diklo labras. Same situation. Father dedicating a palm tree to a daughter. Shachiv, the father died, and he died leaving an estate, fields with lots of trees in them. And amongst his properties, he also had Vishovik Trey Palgi de Dikla. Amongst his many different properties, he had a partnership in 2 trees. Partnership with someone else. So that if he had a partnership in 2 trees, in effect he had 2 half trees. Now, dealing with partners is not always the easiest thing to do, so that when the Yisomim inherited the estate, their least interest would be in those half trees. So what did they do? They wanted to dedicate or give to the daughter who was to receive a palm tree, basically those 2 half trees. Will that be a fulfillment of the will, though? Yosef Rav Ashi v'kokashiole. Rav Ashi sat and analyzed. Mi koru inshi litrei palgi dikli dikla oilo. Do people refer to two half trees by using the term dikla? The father had used the term, he said dikla lebras. Does the term dikla describe two half trees? Amalei Rav Mordechai the Ravashi Hachi Amar Avimi Magronya Mishmei de Rava. So Rav Mordechai tells Ravashi that I heard from that Avimi says in the name of Rava, Koru inshi litrei palgi dikli dikla. People do refer to two half trees by the term dikla. So that's what she will get. With that, we conclude our shiur for today.